Okay, and here we go. My guest today, super excited about this one. A co-founder of Sports One Marketing, three-time best-selling author now, one of the top business coaches in the country, and host of the very popular The Playbook podcast. David Meltzer's here. David, how are you?
I'm amazing. So proud of you. I love this show. I love the setup of the show, the design, and the content. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I'm so grateful to have you on. And a San Diego guy. You went to Patrick Henry High School, correct?
Oh yeah, my wife and I went to Patrick Henry, Lewis, Pershing, Weinberger Elementary. I'm a San Diego guy.
Oh, okay. Wow. So you were here in elementary school as well.
That's when I met my wife at Weinberger in the 4th grade.
That's awesome. So then the key question is, Dave, are you still a Chargers guy, or did you flip to the Rams?
No, I stuck with the Chargers. I'm a huge Padre fan, huge Charger fan. I was a Clipper ball boy, but when they moved, I switched to the Lakers. But I stuck with the Chargers only because I will tell you, my 11-year-old son, I gave him a choice when they moved, is a huge Chargers fan. And I said, you want to switch teams? He said, absolutely not. And so we are through and through. I actually have a podcast studio, an office, and a suite at the new stadium. So I'm just waiting for COVID to allow me to go visit it.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be nice when we get back to ball games. You know what's interesting, just real quick, is the bond that people have with a sports team. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they started bringing up, guys like Dan Fouts and Chuck Muncie and Wes Chandler, and I was instantly, instant friends with that person.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I ran Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment, one of the most notable sports agencies in the world. And one of the first things that Lee did for us is I represented the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And the very first Hall of Fame I went to, they send over these VIP cars in Canton to go over to the ceremonies. And I was standing in the lobby with Lee. He said, "You're not going with me." I said, "Oh, who am I going with?" He said, "I have a surprise." There walks up Dan Fouts, and I got to share my car with Dan Fouts, and he introduced me to Charlie Joyner and all the Phil Nix, Ron Nix, sorry, all the great Charger Hall of Famers.
Yeah, they had some incredible teams back then. Okay, well, I do want to talk about your story a little bit, Dave. You've got just this incredible story, and I think it helps me to learn. I think it helps other people just to kind of get that background and really understand what you've been through. So you get through Patrick Henry High School, Southern California College, I think Occidental, and then you go off to law school in Tulane, but you don't practice law. You get into this just incredible sales story, I think, and you turn out to be fantastic at it as well.
Yeah, I know. Despite my mom wanting me to be a lawyer and telling me that getting involved in selling the internet in 1992 was a bad decision, that the internet was a fad, it would never last. I decided, and my only goal, ironically, was to buy my mom a house and a car. Single mom, 6 kids. We grew up originally in Akron, and then the greatest grace of God, she moved us all to San Diego. So to be poor in San Diego is much better than Akron, Ohio, because you could play outside every day. Back then, you could ride your bike down to South Mission, go surfing, skateboarding, play over the line, all the great San Diego pastimes. But for me, I just wanted to be rich, and I thought selling the internet sounded like a good way to become rich. And I was right. 9 months out of law school, made my first $1 million. I bought my mom a house in Del Cerro and a car, and I took off from there and ended up, over the years, we sold the first company for $3.4 billion. I went to the Silicon Valley, commuted there, became Samsung's in San Diego, their first phone division CEO, and really built in that telecom valley a great business, working with Qualcomm and Samsung and Microsoft. It was the world's first smartphone. But living in Rancho Santa Fe, living out my dream was the first time I wasn't happy. And I think that's what's so important for people to learn. I had 33 homes, condo conversions in San Diego, a golf course in Virginia, ski mountain in Montana, property all over the country. But hugely invested in real estate, but I wasn't happy. And I actually had great real estate properties. I just didn't understand liquidity, and I didn't understand mentorship, and I never asked for any help, and I didn't understand financing. Even though I had a law degree, went to business school, I had a great experience, but believe it or not, I was worth over $100 million, and I really didn't. I wasn't financially literate because I never asked for help.
So things begin to kind of unravel for you there. You've got a place in Rancho Santa Fe, right? Everybody's dream, but it starts to fall apart, and so that's when you kind of go through this real transformation, right? Where it's more about helping people and everything that you preach now, and you really have to find your way at that point.
Yeah, my wife, really shook me and told me I had to take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become. I was partying way too much. I was running the most notable sports agency in the world at that time. So not only did I have millions of dollars, but I had access to the Super Bowl, the Pro Bowl, the Masters, all the celebrities, athletes, entertainers, billionaires, millionaires, entrepreneurs. I was not in a good place character-wise. I wasn't living by or taking into account what I should be taking into account, the things that got me to where I was. And thank goodness I had this extraordinary wife who told me to take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become. And through a process, I started looking at my values, and those values are real simple. Gratitude. I started to find the light, the love, and the lessons in everything I do, surrounding myself with the right people and the right ideas. Forgiveness was a key component to live in peace and forgive myself, to once again pursue learning and making mistakes and forgiving myself and learning from them. And then accountability. I was living in liability. Everything was the blame, shame, justification. 2008 was their fault. Everything was out of my control. But instead, I started to live life to learn things, to ask myself, what did I do to make this happen in my life? And what am I supposed to learn from it? It did not take long for my life to turn back around. Once I was living with my core values to be of service and value of other people. And then later on, building my own brand. In the last 4 years, Warren Moon, the Hall of Fame quarterback, and I created a marketing company. Financially, we're doing extremely well. I used mentorship to make more money, help more people, and have more fun. I figured out that the easiest way to make money was to find people that sat in the position I wanted to be in and ask them for directions. And I think that's why you're such a great mentor. You talk about the show Market Knowledge. You talk about what you have. You understand the San Diego market. You understand, you're one of those experts that I defer to within the specificity of what I'm trying to invest in, what I'm trying to do business in, because you understand the entire picture. You know the market makers, and the buy and sell side of your specific specialty. And it's so important to find those people. And that's what changed my life. And now over the last 4 years from the marketing side, I built my own brand. I have books, the top podcast in entrepreneurship and careers, the Playbook. I have TV shows, 2-minute drill, elevator pitch, office hours. All of these things, though, are directed for one purpose: to empower others to be happy. What I teach now and what I help people do is to make a lot of money, to help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. I don't do anything without a charitable purpose or cause, and I won't do it if I can't learn to love it.
One of the things you just said, it really has always stuck with me, and that's being accountable. There's a lot of bad things that happen to people, right? I mean, bad things happen to you, to me. To really be accountable for it all, that's hard to do sometimes. But it sounds like you were able to do that, and it really propelled you into the next phase.
I think it's all about lessons. When you seek to learn, when you seek to grow, accelerate, and expand, you have a different perspective of bad things. See, we give meaning to everything that we see. And the more capability I had to take the things that other people would see as mistakes, failures, bad things, negative things, and turn them into lemonade, right? To take those lemons of life and turn it into lemonade is specifically utilizing those values of gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration. I have a superpower. My superpower is I can learn to love anything. So, reading Viktor Frankl, Man's Meaning of Life, to be able to look into a dirty bowl of soup with a fish head in it and say to yourself, this is delicious. That's a superpower. And I have honed in the superpower to seek the light, the love, and the lessons and everything, to enjoy the consistent every day, persistent without quit, pursuit of my potential, not anybody else's. I stopped worrying about what other people wanted for me, what was missing in my life, what I didn't want in my life. I started looking at what I wanted, knowing that people would laugh at me, make fun of me, scoff at me, and then eventually applaud me. In fact, I coach many people like you, and even this podcast is living proof that we have to get over what other people or what we think other people would think. And it just is so encouraging. This show is so successful, and it's exactly what I thought it would be. Once you believed what it would be, now it is what it would be.
Yeah. Yeah. You remember that call I made you that one day trying to get me over the hump. I want to do it. We're going to do it. But I just got to get to that point to where I stop caring about what everybody thinks all the time.
Yeah. Well, now they're applauding you. And it's so funny that, you're like, well, who would actually listen? Look, I tell a story about ambassadorship, and I tell a story how when I met Gary Vaynerchuk, who's one of the greatest entrepreneurs in America, a young entrepreneur, and he asked me to build my brand. He said, what would you look for in the first year? I said, 2 ambassadors. He said, 2 ambassadors? I said, yeah, I'm thinking about starting a business, in fact, called the 2 Ambassador Business. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to charge people 10 grand a year to get 2 ambassadors. And he's like, really? I go, yeah, because he said, what's an ambassador? I said, it's 2 people like you, Bob, 2 people that will go tell everyone, you got to read Dave Meltzer's books. You got to watch the podcast, watch his TV shows, his movies. You should get coached by him, go to his free trainings on Friday, whatever it is. They're ambassadors of mine. And every year they'll be able to get 2 more. And I said, everyone will be a little bit frustrated in 5 years when I have 64 ambassadors and you invested 50 grand for 64 ambassadors, 64 people getting me 64 people, 50 grand in. I said, but that's the problem with most people is positive behavior works in the negative favor, meaning that if you do negative things or you think you can't do something, you won't see the result until it's too late. Whereas if you do positive things like build ambassadorship, you take too long to see the result. So most people quit. So what happens? Bob McGriff pays me 10 grand a year to get 2 ambassadors a year. Frustrated after 5 years, 64. But I tell him, just like I did to build the podcast, stay in there, don't quit. Well, 20 years or sooner, because acceleration occurs too. Maybe it takes a year to get 2 ambassadors, 11 months, 4, 10 months, 8, 9 months, 16, 8 months, 32, whatever. Well, in 20 segments, however long that takes, maximum 20 years, Bob McGriff would have 2 million ambassadors getting 2 million ambassadors a year. 4 million ambassadors. 4 million people telling everyone, you got to watch Market Knowledge. You got to do business with Bob McGriff. Could you imagine if I could tell you today, invest 200 grand with David Meltzer in his 2 ambassador program, and you will have 4 million ambassadors in 20 years. Now everybody would be applauding, going, oh, what a bargain that was. But in the short term, most people won't do it because they can't see the picture. And anybody that knows my capability knows that I can get you 2 ambassadors a year for 20 years. I can get you to 4 million ambassadors, but most people don't mind hard, but they really mind long. And so they're not willing to wait.
Yeah. Which is the key. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was I was reading your book again or listening to Connected to Goodness last night, and the part about meeting Lee Steinberg, and because you're coming out of you have this big transformation in your life, huge success on the business sales side, but you've never been a sports agent at that point. How do you go in and talk to one of the biggest sports agents in the world and convince him that you need to be running his business or a big part of it?
How about how funny that is that's the exact thing that got me to where I am today, is that it was the first time I wasn't selling. I wasn't overselling, back-end selling, manipulating, lying, or cheating. Instead, I went to go help my friend with the reality show because he wanted to utilize what he saw a capability of mine, was a great negotiator. So I went up with good intentions to help a friend about a Showtime reality show with Magic Johnson. And fortunately enough, Lee Steinberg was in the deal representing the other party. And I started discussing organically the skill set that I had. I went to law school. I'd been a customer of athletes in sponsorship and advertising and events and charity. And he witnessed my negotiation and business acumen. He had heard my credibility and my history of what I had done in business. And I had no idea that Jeff Morad, who ended up owning the Padres, by the way, Jeff Morad and him had sold the baseball business for $100 million to Asante, and Jeff had taken his money, bought into the Diamondbacks, and was in the process of buying the Padres. Meanwhile, I'm there trying to help my friend, and Lee's there sifting out whether I'd be a credible executive for take over for Jeff Morad. And little did I know, when I went home after spending 7 hours in business with Lee, he called me at 7 a.m. the next day and said, "Hey, would you mind coming back up here?" I said, "Well, should I bring my client?" He said, "It has nothing to do with the reality show. I'd like to talk to you about an opportunity that I think would be perfect for you." I drove up there back to Newport Beach and Newport Center Drive, right there in Fashion Island.
Yeah.
And I sat down with him, and within 5 minutes, he said, "David, the reason I want you to be here is I'd like you to be the chief operating officer of Leigh Steinberg Sports Entertainment." I almost fell down. I was like, how does that happen? And, so I, immediately said, yep, put together the numbers. I'll go ahead, drive home, talk to my wife, send me an email of what the offer is, and I'll get back to you by tonight. Because the only thing that stands between me and the opportunity is the economics and my wife. And I'm sure you're more than abundant and fair. And two, I'm not sure my wife is going to be okay with this. I just want to be transparent with you. He said, "Perfect. I'll send the offer. You talk to your wife. We'll go from there." And one of the funny things too, at that time, I was joking around about my wife, and he asked for a picture of my family. And so, I showed him a picture of my wife and my 3 daughters. I didn't have a son at the time. And he looks at her and he goes, "Wow, what a beautiful family." And I said to him, joking around, because my wife is so gorgeous, I was like, "It is so hard to find, a beautiful deaf and blind woman, perfect for me." And he kind of laughed, but he's a little bit on the spectrum. He's a little bit academic and an odd bird.
Right.
And so literally I end up getting the offer from him without negotiating. I accepted the money. I talked to my wife. She was not thrilled. I'd already been offered a job to be president of the data division of TELUS. But the only way I sold her was that I was going to be traveling internationally again. And, since I was on this transformative journey, I sold her on the fact that I'd like to be at home with her and not travel. And so that's what I think was the convincing thing. I went back and started. The funniest thing is, literally, it took about 6 weeks before my wife came up to meet Lee for the first time. And she's walking down this long hallway in the Jerry Maguire offices to the corner, looking over Catalina opposite of Lee. And he looks down and she's walking in with my daughters, and he hits me on my shoulder. I was like, "What?" He goes, "Dude, your wife is not blind and deaf." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I didn't even remember telling the joke, right? He goes, "I got to tell you, when I met you, I thought, what an extraordinary guy, has all this capability, skills, knowledge, all this great experience, and his wife is blind and deaf. What a great guy."
So he was really believing you. That was really.
He has no common sense at all, nor a sense of humor, obviously, but he's a tremendous philanthropist and a tremendous giant within sports. One of my greatest mentors. He's the one who I have taken my philosophy of being kind to my future self and doing good deeds from. He's a true philanthropist, doesn't care about money at all, only about building legacy. And despite, his personal disease of alcoholism, he's, I think, a legend and a legacy that someday should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so, as you said, he goes through some problems, and you really hook up with Warren Moon, the incredible quarterback, and you start Sports One Marketing. And I know you believe this, and just kind of going through your story, did you visualize or just manifest these relationships happening?
Yeah. Well, later on, as you know, because I coach with you, I call it the mathematical equation of luck. What you pay attention to and what you give intention to, meaning what you think, say, do, and believe, utilizing the law of Goya, getting off your ass. Attention plus intention equals coincidence. And all these unbelievable coincidences have happened ever since my wife set me on the right trajectory. When I started surrounding myself with the right people, the right ideas, reading things like Think and Grow Rich every day, listening to Dr. Wayne Dyer, Power of Intention, reading The Course in Miracles, helping other people, being a mentor and a mentee, asking for help, living with gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration. All of these things are intentions that have created extraordinary coincidences with allowing me to have an incredible platform and brand that truly is making me capable of living to my life's mission of empowering over 1 billion people to be happy.
So maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I'm thinking you really started into that personal brand. And now you've got the office hours, the elevator pitch, and I mean, you're everywhere.
2-minute drill. Don't forget my 2-minute drill.
2-minute drill, right? 2-minute drill. And I'm sure I'm missing a couple because I see you on all the time. What transpired there on the personal branding side? And you decided I'm going to do this. Maybe it was a meeting. Maybe you mentioned Gary V. Maybe that was part of it.
Yeah. So it was my team, first of all, because I've been doing free trainings every Friday for over 20 years. And more people were watching those, and I was being hired to speak and, really getting the message out there. But you can't amplify a message in person as well. And so once I learned from my team about digital marketing and Instagram, remember, at the time I was 50 years old. I'm 53 now. So I was a little bit resistant to anything but traditional brand building, being on the radio, being on TV, articles in Entrepreneur Magazine, just traditional stuff that I could do. But it took Gary and my team not only to convince me to do it, but still today, as you know, my biggest message to you is you cannot create enough content. You have to capture it, modify it, amplify it, and perpetuate it. I still can't fathom how big the opportunity is. And I still, I believe that you're better off posting 100 times the exact same video every single day. Nobody will even notice. There's so many people out there, and you're just building your brand. There's never going to be another opportunity to build personal brands like there are today with such a low barrier entry and a huge reach. It's going to change as corporations and systems get put into place. It's going to, as always, close out the little guy. So you need to, right now, whether you're in real estate, insurance, medicine, Dr. Pimple Popper, or David Meltzer, you got to lean in, take advantage of the opportunity. Don't be afraid that people will laugh at you, make fun of you, scoff at you, because you're going to be the one they're applauding when you have a huge brand, making a lot of money, helping a lot of people, and having a lot of fun.
So that was my next question. How long do we have, do you think, before it really starts to things changing so fast right now?
Sure. Well, I would take this as the last question only because I have a 5:20 rule. 20-minute interviews. Look, I never prospect on how long, right? Time is a man-made construct. What I'd rather people think out there is that this is a unique opportunity. It's not going to get better. It's going to get more difficult and more expensive. So what you want to do is focus in on building it as fast as you can. The bigger and faster you build it, the more opportunity, the more time and money you'll be given in order to effectuate whatever it is. It doesn't matter how long the opportunity exists, whether it's 10 months, 10 years, or 10 decades. If you're leaning in now, it'll never be easier or a better time to start to exponentially grow, accelerate, and compound your brand to build a community to allow you have the option of empowering others as well as making money, as well as helping people and having fun. So I'm here to tell you, as I have before, keep leaning in, Bob, keep creating this great content. It's only going to benefit you to do it as big and as fast as you can.
David, thanks so much. So grateful to have you on the show. Really appreciate it.
You got it. Let's do this again. I'm so proud of you. If you haven't checked this out, please do check out All the Market Knowledge with Bob McGriff. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Be kind to your future self, do good deeds, and reach out to me, David@dmeltzer.com. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Take care, Bob.